we're not expert, but we're trying to do what we can
Absolutely.
with what we have.
That's right.
That's what matters, you know.
It's
So no
live.
judging.
But
So
we are
thank
so
you.
thankful for everybody being here today. I'm Double O, the co-host for Zion Utopia, and we have the one and only Dr. Below Coffer.
Yes, yes.
Soon to be something extremely important, and that most important thing is, well, I can't claim that yet. We're going to be fair to everybody, fair and unbiased reporting. But this beautiful woman next to me is running for the mayor of Sacramento.
Yeah. And she's been all over the place. I see you. I see you everywhere. So that's a beautiful
Hard-working woman.
Yes.
Yes, we know we got a mayor that will do the job.
Well, you did a great. Even on a Sunday, you have that event going on.
Yes. Oh, we are up and running. We have 100, and I think it's like 34 or 33 days until the election. So I didn't check this morning. I have a little app on my phone or a little widget on my phone that tells me how many days until November 5th. But we are coming up. So
Yes.
we are working hard for now. We work hard. We also play hard. We also rest hard. So after November 5th, the phones will be on airplane mode. For our
Oh,
new year. So
yeah.
I'll let you afterwards. But we're going to be working hard until that deadline.
Where you getting all that energy?
I get sleep at night.
Oh, good.
I stay hydrated.
Oh, good.
I try to mind my business.
Oh,
And I try to go to the gym 3 or 4 days a week. So shout out to my OTF crew.
Do you see this globe? Go to the gym
Yeah.
and stay hydrated.
Yeah.
Note to
And
self.
eat good food too. You know.
And I try to surround myself with people who are very loving and
Yes.
caring and kind, and and share goals with me in
Yes.
terms of sharing values and what we want our community to look like. And that is really, filling to my soul.
So when you go on pause, because people like to know, who is Flo Coffer? What will you be doing when you're on vacation? What do you like to do for fun?
Well, right now, what I like to do is lay in my bed
And rest a little
with
bit?
my phone on airplane mode,
But I see you
and
dancing too.
read a book, play in my garden, in my backyard, and just have some serenity, in part because I really do believe in balance.
Yes.
And so, right now with the campaign, this is a season, but my life is like go, 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 right?
Yes.
I am trying to learn the art of what do they call it? The Irish goodbye, right? Where you leave a place really quickly. I'm not great at that. I have very, very black goodbyes, which are, I say I'm leaving, then I hug you, then we have more conversation, then we walk out the door, then we talk by the door, then we talk by the, right? Like, I have a very lengthy goodbye, and so I'm trying to tighten that up because I have to get to a lot of places.
Yes.
But so we're really working hard to be able to connect with people, to be able to have conversations, to talk about how we govern together and what our shared vision for Sacramento is. But then we also, like I said, work hard, we play hard. We had a water battle in the park this weekend as one of our fundraisers. We try to have a good time and meet the moment, and then we also rest. So it is important that we rest. So for now, I enjoy truly resting.
Yes.
Fresh sheets in my own bed, nice and cool.
Yeah.
And then getting up and being able to make a nice meal and then return to rest some more. That is my favorite vacation, because having to go somewhere is like, where are we going? I gotta book someplace. I gotta get there. I gotta get back. I gotta figure out. It's like a series of decisions and a to-do list.
Yes.
And to me, rest is just being able to be in one place and be unbothered.
Because, I mean, you do so much as, you said you were in public
health.
And so I'm pretty sure you're always at some event, you're learning something, you're experimenting with something and trying to help the public. And so that's a very important job, and transitioning into becoming the mayor of Sacramento.
Yes.
Where do you see our situation in our city and some things that might be implemented for our public health?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, I think the entire city should be engaged in public health, whether we know it or not. Because public health really concerns itself with the two most important things to humans, right? The how long we live and how good we live, right? The number of years in our life and the amount of life in those years we have. And so that is something that the city directly impacts. From everything from youth parks and community enrichment, to transportation, to providing water and trash services, to the ways in which it invests in our business community and supports our connections with one another, the arts community, all of those things, obviously public safety, all of those are parts of what allow us to be able to live our full life expectancy. So what what I'm really excited about being able to do is bring that lens to the work we do. So in addition to doing these things because they're essential core city services, we also want to do them in a way that benefits our communities, that helps to, heal from past harms, that helps to address future, concerns and considerations and the future position our city is going to be in. So, we built, for example, a transit system, but how do people move now, right? We've had so many things change. Technology, COVID, right? Like the way in which we move through the world is different. And so we have a transit system that is meeting the needs right now and predicting the needs of what we're going to have moving forward. Same thing for public safety, right? When we built the 911 system, the majority of the reason why people called was because of house fires. Yes. And thankfully, due to prevention, we don't have as many house fires anymore. We still have problems with wildfires, but we use fire retardant materials and we've shored up the electricity grid. We've done these things to be, and we put smoke detectors and all of these, detectors in spaces, so we have fewer fires that are happening in our homes. Yeah. So, but we built this system to respond to fire. So, what does our 911 system need now? That people are calling more for mental health, and more for traffic, maybe than they are for these other things. Like it's about having systems that are responsive and also are predictive. Right? Yes. And it can predict where we're going and what we're going to need and respond to those needs in the future as well.
So, earlier you were explaining the difference between public health and healthcare.
Yes.
And if you can just, explain that because it's important, like you were saying, public health is prevention, where healthcare is healing. But we're going to talk about what that is.
Yes. So, essentially, healthcare is obviously a part of public health, but it's the practice of medicine really is very different. Because public health primarily concerns itself with the health of the population, whereas healthcare really focuses on you as an individual. And so you're coming with your particular needs, but in public health, we notice patterns, right? You okay? We're going to make sure we get her hydrated. But public health really concerns itself with how are people overall doing and what are the patterns we're seeing. Why do the people who live here have more of this condition than the people who live here? Is it something about the environment? Is it something about genetics? Is it something about the combination of genetics and the environment? Like, what is going on? What are we noticing as people age, right? What are we noticing with people who are in a particular, cohort of people in terms of what they experienced at certain points in their lives? So that's our job. Our job is to notice the patterns, to notice which ones are good patterns. Like, it seems like all the people who, drink water regularly somehow end up, having, fewer infections or having, a lower incidence of this disease, right? And so we notice and we're like, that's a pattern that we may want to tell other people about so they can join in. And the same way, hey, we're also noticing that people who are exposed to this particular toxin are more likely to experience this, so we want people to protect themselves from that. And so it's really all about patterns and being able to disrupt patterns that we would like to avoid and embrace patterns that we would like to see amplified. And that is very different from medicine, which is treating you as an individual and can be preventive in nature, right? But in many instances, we access healthcare at the point of we need some support, right? As opposed to as just part of a preventive measure that is saying, let's assess how healthy I am and let's make sure we keep ourselves that way. And so I think those are the complementary nature of that. You need people to respond after something bad happens, but you also want to make sure that you're preventing as many bad things from happening as possible.
Like the environmental stress I'm under, because I get this little tickle in my throat. We're live, so hey, I'm gonna keep it too true right now.
I never heard you do. I'm like, do I stop and make a big thing, or I'm like,
that's what I'm saying. I don't have COVID either. I get tested regularly, but because I do wine pouring and wine tastings and hostessing and all kinds of things, but. It's a trip that you were saying all that because we were talking earlier about having clean water, access to clean fresh air, and there's so many little microorganisms floating in the air that we don't even really know, but your body will let you know because as we just saw, my body wanted to cough that out, so I got enough water into me to help me flush it out. So all these things are so important that we have access to this. And that our government and our country is implementing that on the state level, on the city level. I was just watching this documentary about San Francisco and how there was a mayor who came over. He deliberately forsook, or not forsook, but foretook investing into the Fillmore district, which was a melanated district, a lot of black and brown people there. And that's why today in San Francisco, they're having this big issue about reparations for the people in the Fillmore district. What should they be given? And I mean, this documentary, guys, it's heart jerking. It's really sad to see why a certain group of people don't want to have the full love and acceptance for everybody and invest in each and everybody's community. So it's not to say that they're dumping stuff in our communities and whatever, but they're dumping stuff in our communities.
That's why it comes what you were talking about. The question I have is, you're saying that it's the safety and the health and wellness of the community between the two. But when we see it in our community, that policy that they have put is it protecting our community health and safety as well. What do you feel like? Well, public safety is police, fire, and food, water, and all that, the necessary things to protect everybody. Mm-hmm. But the way the policy, how we see the policy is written, is only protecting certain demographic and certain community than our black community. So how do we create a policy to protect also the health and safety of our community, including policy in our community? You see what I mean? Without killing our kids or without throwing them in jail. That's how, it's our community safety too. I don't think we talk to a lot of black family, they don't feel safe. Do you think, like especially black boys, when you send your black child out there, is he safe from the police, from all the stuff that is aligned in front of him? The food desert, you see what I mean? The education and everything is only this policy. I feel like only works for certain communities, not working for our community. So how do we change that and prevent that? You see what I mean? Not only killing from healthcare, which is lack of food, nutrition, and also even from police killing our kids.
Well, so first and foremost, I mean, this is a great question, and I think the first thing to talk about is like, what is public safety? And I think public safety has started to narrow in its conception over time, because we often talk about our emergency responders as being public safety. And they are a part of public safety in the same way that an emergency department is a part of health, right? We need a place to go when you have had an emergency, when you're injured, when you're having a health crisis, etc., where someone can help you. But an emergency department should not be the primary way that we administer health care or our primary approach to health in general. Right. Because it means that something has gone wrong and we are now helping you.
In an emergency state,
exactly.
Monitoring, helping, getting you the care.
Yeah.
And that is how, unfortunately, many of our cities and counties have decided to approach public safety as well. Is how do we invest as many of our dollars as possible in what we do after you've been harmed, right? So we set a lot of money aside to go into 911 and who responds when you call 911. And that is helpful. If we all have trouble, we want to be able to call 911 and get some appropriate help. But the questions we need to be asking ourselves are, why are people calling for 911? And again, I've already talked about how it's very different than it was when the system was set up. So why are people calling? Who should be responding to those calls, right? Is a question that I think comes up a lot here. And also, how do we reduce the number of calls that are coming in the first place?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what we did with fire. Yeah. We said, gosh, there are a lot of house fires. Yeah. Is there anything we can do in addition to having appropriate firefighters to reduce the number of house fires? Yeah. And that's why now you have electrical inspections, right? Only certain people can upgrade. Like, you have to have certain things to be able to reduce the fires. Mm-hmm. We make the materials that things are built out of materials that actually repel fire, so that you don't end up having your whole house go up in flames, right? Like, we have smoke detectors. We do all these things to be able to prevent the fire in the first place and prevent it from getting to the place where you even have to call 911.
So if someone had some plans and wanted to implement that, do you know the protocol for someone to be able to get with the city besides going to a city council meeting, or what can the Black community do to support you, to support these great questions and problems that need solutions?
Well, so what I would say to this is there's a couple of things that already have happened, right? So one is 4 years ago, the Department of Community Response was created in the city, primarily to help to shift some of the calls away from the traditional first responders and to actually get people who can respond to now what are a good number of the calls, right? Mental health calls for people who need support, especially if they're experiencing homelessness, like those kinds of calls. And then just last year, LAPD Union, which is the largest police union in the state, said here are 28 call types that we actually don't want to respond to because we're not trained for this.
Not to laugh, but
we're not interested. This doesn't feel like a good use of resources. Somebody else should respond to these 28 call types. And so the proposal that I have shared is, look, they're the largest union in the state. We don't have to start from scratch. Why don't we just start with their 28 call types and see if we can get those shifted over for 24-hour response from the Department of Community Response. So again, it's about how do we make sure that when we need something, we're sending the right people out. That was one of our first questions, right? But the second question is how do we reduce the number of calls coming in? And that's where we have to look at public safety in the same way we're looking at healthcare and public health, right? That we need to be investing in prevention. So what are the things we know prevent violence? What are the things we know that prevent traffic accidents? Because the truth of the matter is, everyone, in Sacramento, we are having a real problem with traffic safety. And we've actually had more people killed and severely injured this year alone from traffic accidents than we have from shootings.
Wow.
And we actually have a map of where people are more likely to be killed and severely injured. So it's not a guess, right? In the same way that violence often follows patterns related to poverty and underinvestment and trauma, right? The same thing is true for traffic accidents. That they follow patterns. Yeah, and so we also can disrupt those patterns by building things differently and by intervening. And so those are the things we want to do in the city of Sacramento. So right now, for example, there's a Caltrans grant that Sacramento is eligible for. They only have to put in a 10% match to be able to get up to $10 million to be able to work on some of the most dangerous corridors in the city. That's something that then they have to apply by September. That's something that community members should be pushing on because there are locations in Meadowview, in Valley High, in Oak Park, in Land Park. And he's like, they're all over the city are these locations. And we just had someone, unfortunately, in the North area who passed away in a bicycle crash. Like, we need to be able to shore up this infrastructure in a way that actually will prevent more people from getting hurt. So that's an example of prevention.
These are melanated communities that you named off, most of them, and I'm sure the border of Land Park is, but anyhow.
And just thinking about what are we doing to be able to prevent, right? So that we're not responding afterwards and having to host a vigil and having to deal with somebody who has been injured or who is no longer with us, right? Let's go upstream and prevent. The same thing can be done for violence. We saw it happen right here in Sacramento. We had over 2 years with no youth homicides from 2017 to the beginning of 2020. And we did that because we had a network of violence prevention and intervention, folks who were working together to be able to prevent those youth homicides.
Showing the youth opportunities, having nursing and doctoring and,
and also pharmacy. Intervening with people who were rumored to be active shooters, right? It's everything in between. We need the after school programs and the things for the young kids so that they stay on the right track. But we also need to be able to guide people back to a good track who are starting to veer off. There's always an opportunity, and that's kind of where we were talking about healthcare, right? It's like healthcare is part of prevention. The idea of you go to the doctor when you're sick so that you don't get sicker, right? But ideally, we try to keep you from getting sick in the first place. So this is our first line of prevention: is you don't get sick. Oh, you're sick now. Let's make sure you don't die, right? Let's make sure you're not seriously injured, right? And so all of those things are helpful. And so our prevention here is how do we keep kids on the right track by investing in them? What's that Frederick Douglass quote? It is so much easier to build strong children than to repair broken men, right? Broken adults, to be gender inclusive, right? So we want to invest in kids so that their pathway to success is wide and that they're able to stay on it. And for those who wander off the path, we don't go, oh, you're gone. Right. We go and we bring you back before you're too far gone. So we are trying to make sure we corral people onto the path. And we have that ability, and that's Measure L, the youth fund, is an example of us being able to save some of those dollars so that when we have a recession, we don't lose them. And also now we need to be advocating for the Measure L Commission and really making sure that the city invests in what we most need for our young people to grow up to be healthy adults.
Now, people may not know what Measure L is, so would you mind elaborating?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So 2 years ago, in November of 2022, the city voted. So if you were a voter then, you voted to be able to set aside a portion of the city's budget every year to be dedicated to youth, programming and services. And so the reason for doing that was so that when we have more money, we know that there's always a dedicated fund, but also when the budget goes down, the kids don't get cut, right? Because what often happens is that many young people, especially those under 18, don't vote. Yes. So it's very easy to say, oh, we're in budget deficit, cut their funding, right? Yes. We literally just saw this happen, where we're in a budget issue, and the first thing that they wanted to cut was $1 million from the city that was going to go towards free transit for kids in K-12. Why? Because the majority of them don't vote. And so this program that has only been around for a few years was the first one on the docket to be cut. And so luckily, the school districts and others came together, thankfully, after the fact, to be able to kind of bail the city out in some respects. Yes. But it's just so telling how it's cute to say we care about kids, but they are the first ones on the chopping block when the budget gets tight.
Yes. And it's only because some people don't have children, because I have some family members and they're like, well, I don't have kids, and I'm like, but you're doing a great thing. Like,
I don't have kids of my own. Right. I am a super auntie, right? But I am nobody's mom. But what I will say is, like, that too. I love kids, but also in the same way that our elders are part of our community and deserve to be respected and included and protected, so do our kids. Yes. And so this is the full life spectrum, and hopefully all of us get to experience every phase of it. And so I am, I'm at that age now where I am looking forward to being one of the elders, because it'll be here sooner than I know. Yes. And I was also a well cared for and loved child. And so I want that same experience throughout my life, that we respect and care for and protect people at these vulnerable times in the lifespan. And the beginning and the end is very vulnerable. Yes. We're learning, and then, we're often on the other side of functionality and things like that. And so, what we do for them is really important. And so that's why we should invest.
Yeah, but the problem I have, though, I know Measure U, they were running Measure U too.
Well, running is a... Yeah, I was on the commission that was advisory to the council on Measure U, and advised we did. Yeah. Now, whether or not they took our advice is another story.
And what was Measure U for people in TV land who may not know what Measure U was?
Yes. So, yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Measure U was just they collected some tax money to put it back into the community, especially for underserved, underrepresented communities. Kind of. It was supposed to be that way.
That's not an inaccurate. So I'll give you the textbook was that in 2012 they decided to put a 0.5-cent sales and use tax on the ballot that was going to expire in 2019. And so in 2018, just before it expired, the council said, let's continue it and double it. And so the first time they promised all these things were going to happen in the community. Some of them did, some of them didn't. But the second time, the promise was that the first 0.5-cent was going to be spent exactly as it already was. But the second 0.5-cent was going to be spent on inclusive economic development and the arts community and affordable housing to help us fund this affordable housing fund. Mm-hmm. And the money did not go there. In fact, 4 years ago, our police budget was $156 million, and now it's $250 million per year. So it has gone up by $100 million in the last 4 years. So if we look at where the new money into the city is coming from, it is primarily coming from Measure U, and it is primarily going to the police department. And so we didn't go to those other things. And so on the committee, we really fought for this is a broken promise, and we need more than just policing in Sacramento to be safe. Yes. Right? Investing in young people helps keep us safe, right? And doing the things that we need to do in other areas housing, etc., helps to keep us safe. It helps to make this a place that people can feel comfortable. And so it's very short-sighted to put all of your money into, responding to emergencies and not enough into preventing them in the first place.
No, that's why.
By
That's
having
why
activities and joyful events that people can feel proud and happy to be alive and in their community, and not just trying to smash and grab because there's nothing for them to get a job or have any other type of resource.
Yes, that's
It's really amazing.
That's why I have a problem with all Measure U, Measure L. So even though we advocate for all those, using especially our Black community, our underserved, underrepresented community, most of the time for the equity, but when we're looking at it, how much percentage of it is coming to our community to prevent all the police violence, the poverty, and all that, is practically none. So for me, I'm always looking at it. I'm always, out there.
Yeah, but she's a big advocate for it, though. She's
going to be the mayor, so we want to
the general of tackling these unjust, wicked minds.
I am really intent on doing budgets in a way that I think better serves our communities and also invest in the places that have been historically disinvested. So I completely agree with you. What I will say is that Measure U is asking people for more money, and anytime you have a sales tax, it is regressive. And what I mean by regressive is that the lower your income, the proportionately more you pay of your income into that tax.
Yeah.
So I think there is a special, reciprocity owed to people who are lower income with those dollars because they are paying in proportionately more into the fund. Mm-hmm. Measure L is a little different because it's actually not new money. It was just allocating a portion of the existing budget, whether it goes up or down. So, and also they have not actually started giving out Measure L money yet because the commission was just formed and they're trying to come up with their plan of action right now. So one of the things that people can do, if we're just going to do a direct call to action, is the Measure L commission is meeting regularly. It is composed of people who live in every single city council district in the city, as well as someone who's appointed by the mayor. I would strongly encourage you to go on the city's website, look and see who is representing your area, and reach out to them. Tell them how you'd like to see these dollars spent. Mm-hmm. Check out some of their agendas and maybe even call into one of their meetings. Like, this is important for your voices to be heard about how those dollars can be spent because they're still in the pre-decision making phase. And also this exists in perpetuity. So they will have 10% of this, fund for a long time to be able to spend and invest. And I think those investments should shift around over time and look different and, and really be able to help support the community.
Yes. Thank you so much for that knowledge, Dr. Whoa.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But again, and then when it comes to small businesses, you know how big I am when it comes to small businesses. And I still come back to our community again, because that's what I see. That's what I see, what is the deficient, the necessary things that really, like you were saying, prevention and thrive. So how do our community thrive without small business being invested in small business, like not just, how many our Black businesses shutting down, restaurants are shutting down. So right now, all their money is being invested in the community that is already thriving. Yes. So how do we bring that, fund back to, we can with the prevention and all that, without the fund, without, how do we move from where we are to the next level?
We need the fund, but we also need some policies to be able to help small businesses get started. I would love to be able to look to see, for example, one of the things I'm really interested in exploring is like all the fees that the city requires. Can we amortize those, right? So we spread those payments out over time, much like we do with a mortgage, is amortized, right? So that way, you're instead of having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars up front to get a house, you were able to pay a little bit and then pay over time until you pay it off. And this way, could we do that with the city without charging people interest, but just break these up into payments? So we're not asking small, starting out businesses that are trying to build clients and customers to also hand over large sums of money to the city, right? Because we know that as you build your clientele, you're paying in more sales tax, and that does go back into the city's revenue. So let's let you get going before we start taking all this money from you. So I think that's one of the things that we can look into is how can, from the city side, the things we directly control, Can we make it easier for businesses to thrive? I think also having, we're also getting, right sizing our budget so we can get back to having those Measure U dollars for inclusive economic development. So we can help some of the starting businesses. So we can provide some of the procurement and contracting, training that we can provide to our small businesses, because what I want to see is the city of Sacramento reinvest our dollars.
Yes.
We frequently talk, and we often talk about this within like ethnic communities, right? So how many times does the dollar turn over in the Black community, et cetera? And I'm really thinking about the city of Sacramento writ large. It's like how many times, because we don't have traditional enclaves of a Black community, and like we are actually living with each other in all these different areas around town. So the next question is, how many times is the dollar circulated within the city of Sacramento? And what I look at is, if we start looking at that, we're actually going to be in a better position to be able to benefit those Black-owned businesses and those Latino-owned businesses and all of the smaller businesses.
The smaller businesses, because a lot of my friends, they're Latino, Filipino, Tongan, African American, and they can't get the bonds that they need because they don't have that 25,000 or that 50,000. And something should be done on a city level to, like you said, reinvest into these up and coming disenfranchised communities, so that once they do get a contract, and then they can begin paying the city back.
Absolutely.
Even if it does come with a 0.5% or 1%.
Loans, all of those things should be a part of it, and we want to be supporting those businesses. But the other part of it is also like wanting to support people with ideas, because sometimes we are oversaturated in one particular area. And so, for example, right, like I absolutely love, going to events around town. And also, I see a lot. There are like certain sectors, like the jewelry making that are really saturated. I see a lot of people selling beautiful items. I mean, I'm wearing some, some right? Beautiful items. But my question would be, right? So if we're thinking about setting up brick and mortar businesses, and you're looking at your neighborhood, your area, and you want to set something up, what is the need here? Right? What is missing, so that we can also be encouraging people to fill in gaps in our community so that people don't have to leave. I would say, if I'm looking at, Del Paso Heights and Strawberry Manor, I think some of the things that I don't see there are activities beyond food and drink. Right? What do I do in my community without having to leave to go somewhere else? Right? And so if you're thinking about putting in a business, also thinking about not just what am I good at, which is great. I mean, I want people to be in businesses that they're good at and interested in. But if you're in a community that has already a lot of restaurants or a lot of this particular thing, finding a way to be able to say, I'd like to start a business. How can I fill a niche as well? And I think that's part of the business creation opportunity, and that's where we really need to be able to cultivate and support, small businesses as they're starting up. But then also as the city, how can we contract with you? So I look at, for example, Golden One as a chief opportunity. When the Golden One was put together, there were opportunities for construction. There were opportunities, for all the things to be able to that were involved in building the place. And then there's, in perpetuity, all the businesses that thrive because Golden One exists, right? And in particular, I think about those that are vending inside Golden One. And it's frustrating to me that instead of, serving local beers and wines, we are largely serving national brands. Because that's an example of our dollar is only recycled once in our community before it goes to wherever their headquarters and wherever their manufacturing is happening. And we have a bunch of breweries and wineries right within the city limits, or within our even regional limits, where at least there's going to be some sort of reciprocity, and where people are going to be hired into jobs, where they can expand their manufacturing. So those are the kinds of opportunities I'm looking at, is how can we recycle these dollars multiple times, especially in publicly funded projects. The city has given $20 million toward Golden One. I think we can turn around and ask them, can you put on some of our businesses throughout the region, and especially in regions that need business development, that this would really be a boom? And can we circulate that opportunity to more businesses so that you can come in and have this for a few years, and then somebody else can come in, and maybe at that point you're ready to get a main stage one, or you're ready to expand your business somewhere else. Like, these are the types of things that I'm thinking about when it comes to our business community, is how can we, by doing what we're already doing, better support what's already here.
And instead of shutting them down. Because I think especially when you become a mayor, that is the most important thing is, like they were saying, small business is the backbone of the economy. But right now, honestly, like a lot of small businesses are so frustrated. A lot of the tax dollar money goes out into the big businesses. It's not coming into, obviously, I mean, do you see coming into back to our community? Do you see any change from the state fund or from the city fund, whether it's Measure U, Measure L? I see every time budget, this about $300 billion budget from the state. We have $1.5 billion budget from the city. But if we break it down and then we look at where our communities are when it comes to community violence, when it comes to lack of small businesses support and everything, we're so far away. So how do we specifically, I know, the budget is for everybody, but it's not coming to us. But 97% of our money, black dollar, is coming out. It's not coming back to us. That means it's going to the taxpayers' money. Like you were saying, they're paying now $200 million for police. If they put like $100 million back to our community, we can police our community. We can invest in our community.
Or
we can invest those dollars in other aspects of public safety. I think that's really what we're saying is like there are so many things that go into. I am a Black woman, and if I'm walking down the street, like I am thinking about safety very differently than other people in our community. But ultimately, we all have a conception in our heads of what safety looks like. And it's usually a freedom from violence, a freedom from harm, right? It's the ability to be able to move through our space and feel at ease in our own skin. We're going to move through the space differently. My mama ain't going to be out after dark unless she's coming or going from someplace. She's not going to be taking a walk, right?
Like, well, my mom driving after dark.
Everybody's move through the space is different. But whether you're the person who wants to walk their dog at 3 a.m. or whether you're the person who wants to go for a jog at 6 a.m., right? Or at noon. We all are going to move through the space, and we all need that space to be able to serve our needs. That is safety. So what does it look like then to invest in a community that has adequate lighting and and sidewalks and all of the things? Because again, safety is not just like violence. It's also like, was I harmed between point A and point B? There's a reason why when we're often together and we leave a space and it's like, text me when you get home. Right. And you're walking down a dark street. We're not really as worried. I mean, like there's all kinds of things that could happen, but one of the main ones is you could get in an accident. And then you are on the side of the road and we think you made it home safely and you bleeding out and we could have, right? Like we want to be aware if something happens to you, right? So that's safety. And so we're doing this as a way to be able to help guarantee that safety and guarantee that we heard from you. Right. And so we don't have to go out searching for you. And so that's part of what we want to be able to take these dollars and invest in is what gives us that? What gives everybody the ability to move through this space as they would ideally like to, free of harm?
Yeah. But the youth, like you were saying, our youth are not free of harm. That's what I'm saying.
That's the goal, though. The goal is free of harm.
America or the state or the city is paying over $200 million for the police. Our kids are not safe. Our Black kids are not safe.
And part of that is because we need to invest in what makes us
safe. But they need to invest that money into our community. That's what I don't see. Especially in fact, they would say, oh, it's community violence. But community violence is your problem as well. You need to invest. Last time some community violence happened in downtown and nothing for the people, no support for the people. Oh, that's community violence. So let them deal with the type of mentality is the city and the state. So for somebody like you to come in there, you gotta break that type of mentality in the system.
It's framing. So we can talk about this from the perspective of this is our responsibility, and we actually do have a way to prevent some of these things. I think a lot of people think about violence and substance use and all these things as just like inevitability. They just happen, right? They don't see that these are patterned things that happen more and less based on certain circumstances. And that they're also patterns that can be disrupted. And so part of what we're always trying to do is prevent as much as we can and then address the rest. Because you're not going to be able to prevent everything. But my goodness, why wouldn't we try to prevent as much as we can? And I think that's the kind of system that we're trying to set up.
Yeah.
It's one where we have the resources to invest in what gets us the good outcomes, right? Why, if we had 2 years with no youth homicides, wouldn't we not continue to do what got us those 2 years with no youth homicides? And what could we do to be able to expand it and make it 3, 4, and 5? And why on earth is that news to so many people who lived here at that time?
Yeah.
Why wasn't there a banner being hung up at every school and all around saying, oh, like, you know how they have those days since the last safety incident?
And that is a good point.
We should have been like that. We should have been turning that every day, days since somebody died, because what that means in human terms is that
my
there's
friends didn't die.
Come on. That there's no RIP banners hanging on any of our high schools' fences, right? That there's no 14, 15, 16-year-olds crying over a grave. That there's no open seats at the prom with a wreath on them that says RIP to X, Y, and Z. Like, that's what that means in human terms.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so real. I think we're gonna celebrate that. I'm down for that.
So, like, let's celebrate.
So I'll be going to the Measure L and the Measure U committees. You guys log on, like she said, to sacramentocity.org. No, .gov. Excuse me, sacramentocity.gov. And that's where you can find information. That's what I was thinking too. I thought it was .org.
I don't know why.
I know it's a municipality. But it's really beautiful to have you here to educate us on these things so that the Black community and underserved communities can go and support Dr. Flo Coffer and do your part. Show up. Show up on the 29th and you can talk more and put your ideas pen to paper. And we're going to be talking to the live panelists, Dr. Flo Coffer, Assembly Member Kevin McCarthy, Dr. Kidell Truth Bay, and Chris Lodginson. You guys are going to want to be there, 225 Florin Road. And my battery's about to die, so that means it's about to be 5 o'clock or so. But we appreciate you, Dr.
Absolutely. And, you know, of course, we're running for mayor. It's about 133 days or so away.
The countdown.
So please go to flowformayor.com. You can sign up there for updates on the campaign.
Donate.
Sign up there to donate that, please. Contribute to the campaign. You can help us knock on doors, phone bank. You can also help us with relational organizing. Talk to your friends and family, the people who trust you. Share things with them so that they can get more involved. Make sure your young people are registered to vote and know how to vote. Host a ballot party with all of your family in October. Get them to come together and answer questions with each other using some of the local voter guides. Like, really, let's make sure we show up, because there's also 15 statewide propositions that are going to be on the ballot, and some of them are incredibly important. We talked about the environment, making sure there's setbacks, so oil and gas are not drilling right in front of our schools and our hospitals and our homes. Like, there's important stuff on the ballot, and so I know there are a lot of people who are not super excited about a rematch between Trump and Biden. But I just want to remind you that elections are not just what's at the top of the ticket. There's a bunch of other consequential stuff that you get to vote directly for. Not even for people, but actually for policies, in addition to people like myself who are running to represent you. So please, get folks out, get them registered, get them involved. This is an opportunity to make your voice heard beyond just Trump versus Biden.
Yeah, absolutely, especially in our community. We got to vote at the city level. I mean, it's important to get involved at the federal level, but know who your council members are. Know who your city manager is. Everybody knows who your mayor is, but what is it? That's what we want to
Everybody
make
everybody doesn't know, and it's okay. And there's also a way to be able to come in, and part of what I really want us to do is govern together. So there's a way that you can learn, so that you don't feel ashamed that you didn't know. We all had to learn at some point, and people change, right? There used to be this person, and now it's that person, right? So I get that, following the nitty gritty detail. That's why you can follow organizations that do it for you, that help to summarize it. That's why we want to make it much more accessible to you, because anytime somebody says to me, oh, I don't really do politics, yes, you do. Everybody does politics because the personal is political. If you care about your kids, if you want to drink clean water and breathe clean air, you care about politics. You may not be engaged in the political system officially, but you care about politics. And so the question is, how do we make your voice and your interests heard? And how do we do that in a way that feels comfortable to you? And it's going to look different for everyone. But the bottom line is we benefit from your expertise and lived experience and from you being a part of it. And I'm trying to build a campaign and an apparatus for governance that allows you to be able to opt in and have your voice be heard and be able to participate and share your expertise and your creativity. Because I think this is a wonderful city with a lot of really dedicated people, and the more we can take advantage of that, the more we can accomplish together.
Absolutely. So please get involved. That's what we say. At the end of the day, we can sit behind the computer and complain and whine, but if we don't get involved, we don't get the funds. We need to get involved in businesses. We need to get involved in politics, especially to build our community, our kids.
And if you're not into politics, just get involved with your personal, like Dr. Flokoffer just said. It's not about being political. It's about being real and caring for your environment and yourself and your children and your community.
Your kids and kids and kids, your generational wealth, your health, your wellness. So please make sure you get involved on the mayor. Make sure you vote for the
What's your website?
Flowformayor.com. That's FLOFormayor.com.
And show up on the 29th, because she'll be there also to answer your questions, because this is just introduction to her. But make sure you follow Dr. Flo. She's an amazing human being and a person, and you know,
show up at 5 so you can get your questions if you would like to speak to the wonderful Madame Dr. Flokoffer. And we thank you guys for tuning in.
And competition too. Kevin McCarty.
Oh yes. You
need
to meet both of them.
Yes. So you'll meet both of them. So
I was like, competition.
I'm about to say, girl, you read my mind. What competition? You meet her opponent.
Yeah. But we all good, so please make sure you be there. Get involved with our people. That's all you have to do, regardless.
Yeah.
You know, support with your money, with your knowledge, with your time, whatever.
We're
showing up
and voting.
Yeah, that's the only way. So thank you, Dr. Flo. We really appreciate you. Regardless.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
I hope everybody felt like I was talking to him. I'm trying to do both.
Yes. And we had a secret one there.
Oh, and then another one. I was looking at that one. Sorry.
Bye, guys. Thank you
for
for
doing your way, you know, organically. So just get involved and make sure you do the survey too for the reparation. Yes. Thank you.
See, why did